By the authority vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that comes before it. Prayer of council.
Please rise. In prayer. O divine Master, in deep humility we place ourselves, our thoughts, and our plans in thy hands. We beg thee to fill our minds and our wills with the gifts of wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, and piety. Help us not to think of self or personal desires, but rather consider the responsibilities laid upon us. Help us to promote as far as possible the welfare of our people and to treat them with impartiality and justice. Grant us the power to set a good example in thought, word, and deed, so that thy blessings will be showered upon us and the people we represent. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to the regular public meeting, there was an executive session held on personnel and legal matters. Roll call.
Councilmember Totino.
Present.
Note for the record, Councilmember Griffin is absent. Councilmember Sokolowski.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Stokely.
Here.
Vice President Flanagan.
Here.
President Leonard.
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is recognition of 20 years of service for Francis Purry Jr., Public Services. Mr. Sokolowski.
So Frank wasn't able to make it for the last ones because he didn't want to share the spotlight with anybody else. Frank started his career with the Borough of Conshohocken in 1998. 2.5 years ago, he gave up his position as driver to take the position of foreman. It's a newly created position. Frank's one of those people that every administrator, manager wants on their team. He's the guy that's the first one there when you call him in, the last one to leave. He's a great person to deal with. I think most of the members of council have dealt with him before. They know exactly what I mean. He's also a great leader for the department, a department that's seen many changes. Frank's also now a member of our emergency management team, which is something that we didn't have before. Again, the one thing that I think Frank promotes the most and helps the most with is he's promoted this customer service mentality for the Public Works Department. That mentality comes from him. He does it by example. So I want to congratulate Frank on 20 years for the Borough of Conshohocken, present him with his watch, and thank you.
Congratulations, Frank. Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Stay for 20 more, Frank.
Is that quick enough? Is that good? Yeah, that's good. The second item on the agenda I have is this is Steve Young. He's a firefighter EMT for the borough. He's been at the borough for almost a year now. He comes to the borough with 24 years experience in firefighting, 12 years of which he was a career full-time firefighter and inspector. Over the last 24 years, he's attained numerous certifications to include Nationally Certified Fire Investigator. He attended the National Fire Academy ATF Investigator class and Courtroom Testimony and Interview class, National Fire Inspector, certification in 1 and 2. He's a Uniform Construction Code building inspector, fire, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and plan review. He served as the deputy fire marshal in Warminster Township from 2007 to 2009. He has certifications from Bucks County Community College in fire science, fire prevention, fire investigation, and he's part of the PA Emergency Management local level basic certification. He's also on Team 1 FEMA? Team 1 FEMA for national response during a disaster out of New Jersey. So I think Steve is more than qualified for the position of Deputy Fire Marshal in the Borough of Conshohocken. We're glad to have him, and the mayor's going to swear him in.
I, Steve Young, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
The next item on the agenda is consider granting conditional use approval for Matson Mill. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, Madam President. If we could go on the record, please. This is the time and place announced for the issuance of the decision on the conditional use application filed by High Street Conshohocken 1 LLC. The conditional use seeks approval under Section 27-1603.4 of the Conshohocken Borough zoning ordinance to permit a multifamily use on a parcel located in the SP3 Specially Plan 3 zoning district. The property is commonly referred to as 101 Washington Street and was more specifically identified at the first hearing on this matter. I'm not reading the tax parcels again. This vote was announced at the end of the prior hearing, which took place on November 6, 2019. The record in this matter is closed, so there's no additional evidence or comment this evening. As an administrative matter, there will be an additional exhibit, Exhibit B5, which contains a list of proposed conditions should Borough Council approve or vote to approve the application. Those conditions have been reviewed by the applicant prior to this evening, and it's my understanding that the applicant accepts those conditions. Is that accurate, Mr. Colagreco?
That's correct.
While the specifics of the conditions are set forth in B5, which is now an exhibit in this matter, for the public's benefit and for council's benefit, a brief summary, I'll walk through them quick. Exhibit B5 does control because I'm not reading the full condition. Condition 1, strict compliance with the representations made at the hearing, including specifically strict compliance to the plans and architectural exhibits for the apartment buildings and the public amenity areas. Condition 2, with respect to the Oak Street crossing, the applicant is required to post financial security in an amount equaling 110% of the crossing improvements, and subject to such future agreements as shall be required by the borough upon one of two events. 1, the crossing is not fully open at the time the applicant applies for a use and occupancy permit, or 2, SEPTA notifies the applicant and the borough that it does not intend to complete the crossing improvements. Condition 3, applicant shall perform a post-development evaluation of the traffic signal at Fayette Street and Elm Street and post financial security in the amount of $6,000 for same. Condition 4, applicant shall contribute to upgrading the traffic signals along Elm Street in the borough. Condition 4, applicant shall prepare certain emergency evacuation plans subject to the approval of the borough. Condition 6, applicant shall comply with the conditions set forth in the land development resolution, which we'll talk about next, should council grant land development approval. Those are the conditions, again, as more specifically set forth in Exhibit B5. At this time, if there are any questions by Borough Council, that would be fine. Otherwise, if council would vote to approve the application, it should do so subject to the conditions set forth on Exhibit B5.
I have a question. The past few weeks ago, we talked about the train station, and everybody just looked forward, never got an answer. Now, SEPTA's not here tonight, but I'm going to ask you your intentions of the train station, okay? I found my rendering from 2005 that they promised they were going to do this, and now we have this in 2019, which is beautiful rendering. Is that still going to happen?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the discussions that we've had with Mr. Peters and
The microphone.
Yeah, can you just,
Microphone.
Mike, can you just come up to the podium if you wouldn't mind? Thanks.
Thank you.
SEPTA was here the other night, and we
Yes.
represented they were going to be doing the station and the platforms. They've already started to work on the platforms. I'm not sure whether you're aware. They've done they started to do the electrical work now. They started to do the caissons for the platform itself. So that work has been funded, and it is moving forward for the platform. I do have an agreement and an offer from SEPTA to acquire the back lot. We're still in the process of negotiating that through, but that offer came from their general counsel. I received that last week, so we'll negotiate that through. There was a question that was raised by the borough as to the crossing itself, as to whether it was going to get done, what the commitment was. And I think I represented that SEPTA had made that commitment at the last meeting, and they acknowledged the fact that everything that we said was accurate, except they did it as SEPTA, sitting there by the. So after I got off the phone with Mike, with your solicitor, I sent an email to Bob Lund, Assistant General Manager in charge of that station, and said, I need to know today what your intention is relative to that crossing. He came back with full faith that they have every intention to have the crossing and complete the train station there. So, I've known you guys for a long time. That's absolutely going to happen. So, I'm not sure when they're going to be coming in to you to discuss the second half of the property, but they will have to come in. And I've already made some representations to your council about, as part of this application, we've had to agree that the percentage of open space for the entire site would be met, and not just for this particular apartment job. And I acquiesce as to that, and any transaction that we finalize with SEPTA will include that as an exception too.
Try not to make the price too high.
Pardon?
Try not to make the price too high for the lot,
He's kidding.
for SEPTA.
Yep.
Because this is going to benefit you
Oh, absolutely,
and the town and a lot of people.
absolutely.
Thank you.
And it's well overdue.
Yes.
Yes, it is. There you go.
And we appreciate it. Thank you.
2005. You know what the shame of it is? They don't even have porta potties down or any bathrooms right now at all, for years.
It was in 95, 96, when we were doing the Ray Wyman, the me and Wyman problems, when we were first doing our project there on Elm Street. They were going to do that.
Yep.
The train station then, if you recall. And then the other thing was PDOT was going to do the slip ramps up onto the Blue Route. So you and I have now gotten a little bit older, but,
That's right, Mike.
At least we're gonna get one of-
Understand why I'm asking the question.
and I understand, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I just have one question. On the updated signals, are these signals being updated to the specs of the other signals that we've just upgraded in town, so it will be all on that same loop to help traffic flow? Is that the intention?
That is the intent, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. I would need a motion to grant conditional use approval for Matson Mill Development per the proposed conditions read into record on November 20th,
Make that
2019.
motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Very good. We will now, and we can excuse the court reporter, thank you very much. We'll now move into the land development aspect of this project. You just granted conditional use approval, taking care of the zoning issues associated with the project. As you know, this applicant also obtained zoning relief. I have provided you a resolution for your review. I've also provided it to the applicant. This applicant, we're in a unique position because you actually held a full-blown hearing on this application, so I won't go as in detail as to the background information as I usually do, but I will hit very briefly the proposed conditions as set forth in your resolution. The first condition is that applicant would be granted waivers from SADO Section 22-308.A and .C, 22-404.3.F, parentheses 7, 409.2, 421.4, and 421.5. The applicant would be granted a partial waiver from 22-306.A, parentheses 1, subject to the applicant providing such information as deemed required by the borough engineer. Applicant would be granted a waiver from SADO Section 22-403-A, parentheses 7 and 8, to permit Oak Street and Washington Street to dead end at the proposed property lines of Lot 1, subject to providing public access easements for the borough's approval. Condition 4, applicant would be granted a partial waiver from SADO Section 22-403.C to permit a paved width and no right-of-way width for Washington Street as shown on the plans, and that is subject to the condition that the applicant obtain the approval of the Borough Fire Marshal for purposes of emergency access. Condition 5, the applicant would be granted a partial waiver from the requirements of SADO Section 22-404.2.B to permit a driveway width at the parking garage entrance exit which exceeds the maximum 25-foot driveway, and you'll recall that the borough traffic engineer approved of such widening provided that the turning movements are subject to their approval. Condition 6, applicant would be granted a partial waiver from SADO Section 22-404.2.C to permit a driveway to be located closer than 40 feet from the intersection of Oak Street and Washington Street, subject to the approval of the borough traffic engineer. Applicant would be granted a partial waiver from SADO Section 405.1.C to permit sidewalk widths of less than 15 feet as shown on the plans, subject to the condition that all sidewalks shall be a minimum of 5 feet in width along the private roadway. Condition 8, applicant would be granted a partial waiver from SADO Section 22-405.2 to permit flush surface parking along the southern side of the private driveway, subject to the condition that bollards be installed, and further subject to the condition that the curb on the northern side of the private roadway be constructed as part of the Lot 1 improvements. Condition 9, applicant would be granted a partial waiver from SADO Section 804 to permit more than 25% of the park and recreation space to be located within the floodplain, and that's subject to the condition that the applicant execute such public use and access easements as are required by my office. Furthermore, as Mr. Sensendiver noted, subject to the condition that the applicant will subject Lot 2, which we hope is going to be the SEPTA parking lot or parking garage, to a restrictive covenant or other instrument subject to my approval, that Lot 2 will meet the requirements of SADO Section 804 if and when developed. Condition 10, applicant has agreed to and shall contribute to traffic improvements within the borough as set forth on your borough engineer's review letter. Condition 11, applicant will comply with any and all conditions of the zoning hearing board. Condition 12, applicant shall comply with any and all conditions of your conditional use decision, which we just went over. Condition 13 is the same condition relating to the Oak Street crossing as was set forth in your conditional use condition. Condition 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 requires the applicant to comply with the review letters of the borough engineer, borough zoning officer, borough traffic engineer, borough fire marshal, and to the extent required by the borough, the Montgomery County Planning Commission. With respect to the borough engineer, zoning officer, traffic engineer, and fire marshal, that condition is subject, of course, to any changes made during the check set review process. Condition 19, the applicant shall obtain the approval of the borough fire marshal for the proposed emergency access. 20, the applicant shall execute stormwater operations and maintenance agreement subject to my approval. 21, shall execute a land development and escrow agreement for my approval. 22, shall provide the borough with its logistical plan for collection of trash. 23, shall satisfy any outstanding invoices. And finally, 24, shall abide with the terms of this resolution itself. If council was inclined, this would be a grant of both preliminary and final subdivision and land development approval subject to the conditions I just read.
I'll make that motion.
I'll read the motion. I need a motion to approve preliminary, final, minor subdivision, and land development for the Matson Mill development.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
For the record, 5 yes, 1 no. Mr. Tino, thank you.
Thank you very much. And you will be receiving a notice of decision from our borough zoning officer, and her and I will work that out tomorrow. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Council President, if I could just say a word. I've been in town developing for a long period of time and come through a number of administrations. And I would like to compliment you people sitting on the dais who have hired what I would characterize as one of the most professional staffs in the county, if
Thank
not
you.
this side of the state. It's been a pleasure working with them. They've been tough, and they've done everything they can to ensure the benefit of Conshohocken, but they have been really professional. And I know you appreciate them, but I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And we, thank you, we love hearing that also, so
Thank you
thank
for all
you.
your
Thank you
help.
for your compliment.
Thank you.
The next item is our consent agenda. The first item is approve and adopt the September 25th special meeting minutes and the October 2nd and October 16th regular minutes. Approve and adopt the ending treasurer's report and accounts payable.
I'll make that motion.
I have to do them separate. First motion is to approve and adopt September 25th, October 2nd, and October 16th meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The second motion is to adopt the October ending treasurer's report and accounts payable in the amount of $441,407.71. Is that correct? Yes. Do I need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Unfinished business, Ms. Checo.
The next item on the agenda is to consider approving an agreement with PFM for financial advisor services related to the sewer system. Again, this item was discussed on November 6th in depth. It is Phase 2 and Phase 3 of a process that has already started. The agreement in front of you lays out stipulations related to fees, expenses, indemnification, et cetera.
So I'll need a motion to approve an agreement with PFM for financial advisor services related to the sewer system.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider approving Resolution 2019-25, adopting a fire stipend program for volunteer firefighters. You heard from your fire chief on November 6th, specific to a stipend for the borough providing to our volunteer firefighters. There is $40,000 allocated in the 2020 budget already, and borough administration is supportive of this stipend program.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider awarding a bid for towing services. As discussed on November 6th, there was 2 proposals received through an RFP process. Those 2 proposals were from EVB Towing and Janeway Towing. Administration is recommending that the borough contract with EVB Towing for a 3-year period starting January 1st, 2020.
Before we make that motion, I'm going to recuse for personal reasons. So the motion is to award bid for towing services to EVB Towing for 3 years starting on January 1st, 2020.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One recusal.
Anyone opposed?
No opposed.
Okay. Okay, next item is to consider awarding a bid for police consulting services. Again, this was an RFP process that went out. We received a response from Matrix Consulting Group. The intent of the RFP is to bring in this consultant to do an evaluation of the police department like we have done with other departments in the borough operations. The price is at a not to exceed of $33,400, which is currently budgeted in your 2020 budget.
So the motion is to award a bid for police consulting services to Martin Consulting Group at a price of $33,400.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider authorizing advertisement of Ordinance 8 of 2019, which amends Chapter 11 of the Borough Ordinance to include the installation and maintenance of rear house numbers for residential rental properties. This was an initiative that council asked us to look into. Again, we will be starting with the rental ordinance and working our way through other ordinances to implement this. Again, we wanted to be strategic and timely in how we rolled it out to the community. So there'll be information in the Borough newsletter, and there'll be information that was put out on the website as we start introducing this process, which we believe from an emergency services perspective will help our emergency personnel identify properties as they go down alleys and roadways.
So the motion is to advertise ordinance 08-2019, amending Chapter 11 of the Borough Council ordinance to include the installation and maintenance of rear house numbers for residential rental properties.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is to consider approving the fiscal year 2020 proposed budget and advertise the same as duly required. On November 6th, there was a budget presentation. In that budget presentation, there was two options presented. Option A, presented with no tax increase. Option B, presented with a 1 mil tax increase, which resulted in approximately $664,000 being allocated specifically to debt service. This evening, what we are looking for is the selection of either option A or B. So at this point, if you are so inclined, would make a motion for either A or B in terms of the budget.
I'll make a motion to accept item B.
Okay, so I will read that. Motion to approve fiscal year 2020 proposed budget option B with a proposed 1 mil tax increase and advertise the same as duly required. So Tina made the motion. I'll need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No for me.
Okay. Motion carries.
Note for the record, Mr. Rogers, that it is 5-1. Stokely, no. The next item on the agenda is to consider authorizing advertisement of Ordinance 7 of 2019 to levy real estate tax for 2020. Based off of the motion that was just made, you would be advertising an ordinance levy indicating that the sum of the real estate tax rate for the borough would be at 4.5 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation.
So the motion is to advertise of ordinance 07-2019 to levy real estate tax for 2020 at 4.15 mils.
4.5 mils, just for the record.
4.5 mils, I'm sorry.
I'll make that motion.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'm opposed.
Motion carries. No business.
Under new business, the first item is to consider approving 322 East 8th Avenue Financial Security Release Number 2 in the amount of $19,794. Our engineer has been out on site and has done an evaluation. We have received some concern regarding the driveway area. So there is a partial release that is recommended in the amount of $19,794. We do recommend the release of this escrow at this time, understanding that there is still a contingency left in their escrow.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is to approve 322 East 8th Avenue Financial Security Release Number 2 in the amount of $19,794.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider approving Resolution 2019-26, authorizing the submission of the 2019 CDBG application. You've heard from Ms. Stetler in numerous meetings and public hearings regarding CDBG. You've also heard about her good work and the amount of dollars that are coming into the borough relative to grant monies that will help the low to moderate income individuals through this program. We do need a motion, though, to actually submit the application, which is what is in front of you this evening.
So the motion is to approve Resolution 2019-26, authorizing the submission of the 2019 CDBG application.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider requests from the Friends of Conshohocken Parks to utilize funds for the Dog Park Advisory Committee and Marywood Park Commission. Specifically, the Dog Park Advisory Committee is requesting $387.50, and the Marywood Park Commission is requesting $222.60. Per the bylaws of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks, it needs to come to full council for approval.
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is an update on the fire company audits, and I will turn it over to Mr. Peters.
Thank you. As council is aware, we have been providing updates approximately every other month relating to the audit of the two fire companies. With respect to fire company number 2, your auditor has all requested material, is proceeding with the audit, and our expectation is that the audit will be done by the end of 2019. Those materials were handed over to the borough without any additional required agreements. With respect to Washington Fire Company number 2, there was a request by their fire company to execute a confidentiality agreement. We talked about that at a previous meeting. The trick is that we have to balance the confidentiality agreement against the right to know law, which you're all subject to. It's not quite as easy as a private entity simply signing a confidentiality agreement. You're subject to a whole different set of laws. So we had an initial confidentiality agreement that I reviewed with all of you, proposed some edits, sent back to the fire company, and there was a request for additional edits. Those additional edits involved keeping the final audit report confidential. Additional discussions with the fire company have led to the potential that that audit report will be redacted as necessary. Again, it would be redaction of only sensitive financial information. That request came November 8th, 2019, so this evening, when we spoke prior, was the first chance we all had to talk about it. The next step is for me to go back to the fire company with some proposals with respect to redaction, and the actual agreement will need to be considered by you at a public meeting at the end of this. So that, I just wanted to make sure I explained why there's a difference in terms of timing between the two.
Mr. Peters, for the record, it's not Washington Fire Company number 2, it's Washington
Oh, did I
Fire
say
Company.
that?
Yes.
I know it is, sorry,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah,
Just
sorry.
so everyone else knows
Yep, sorry about that.
the distinctions. Anyone have any questions?
So Mr. Peters, or Mike, I just want to make sure I understand this. So we're still going to go back and forth with the final decision on the confidentiality.
We hope for the last time, Ms. Sokoloski.
And then after that, we can start getting the information to the auditors, which then could take several months.
It
So that
could.
could take us into the new year?
It could.
Is there any
I would
decisions?
expect at this point that frankly it would, just
Okay.
based on the realities of how long it takes to do an audit.
Okay.
And again, because you're a public body, not only are you subject to the right to know law, but you're subject to the Sunshine Act, so you can't vote on that agreement unless it's at a public meeting.
Okay.
So that's the other restriction that you're bound by.
Anyone else, any questions? Okay. And also, Mr. Peters, the confidentiality would restrict the rights of the residents also.
It would not only the residents, but anyone filing under the right to know law, right? So,
No, I just meant their right in general to know.
oh, correct.
Yes,
Sure. Yeah,
the
yeah.
results.
Everybody, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and it is their money, the taxpayers' money.
The allocation's correct.
Yes, okay. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is to consider approving an addendum to the solid waste disposal agreement with Covanta Plymouth. President Leonard, if you're okay, I'll just say a few brief words.
Please.
So just as a reminder, based off of the information that was shared at the November 6th meeting, in 2014, Conshohocken, West Conshohocken, and Plymouth entered into an intermunicipal agreement for trash and recycling disposal with Covanta. The bid provided for the disposal of up to 8,025 tons of residential municipal solid waste, and it was for a 5-year period. The rate for 2020 is set at $58.50 per ton. The original bid included a 5-year renewal option and then an additional 5-year renewal option, all with set prices. The Covanta contract is up for renewal as of 1/1/2020. However, there have been recent events that have raised concerns relative to its plant's operation. The borough has carefully considered the community's concerns and has proposed to Covanta a middle ground solution, specifically a limited renewal option for a term of less than 5 years previously contemplated. It's our hope that Covanta will demonstrate over a limited 2-year period that has fixed its operational deficiencies and that it understands that the operational failures over the last year are unacceptable. The 2-year renewal contract would contain a clause providing for an additional 3-year extension period, contingent upon the borough's review of Covanta's operations over the next 2 years. The 2-year extension would maintain the prices currently quoted and would allow for an additional 5-year renewal should the 3-year renewal be exercised for 2022 and all the current rates bid in 2014. In other words, the borough has heard the community's concerns regarding Covanta, demanded a shorter-term contract to permit ongoing monitoring of Covanta's operations, and ultimately to permit an educated determination of whether or not Covanta can rectify their operational issues and provide a safe long-term solution for the borough as it relates to renewable trash disposal. After considering all concerns and available disposal options, the borough believes that the short-term renewal is in the best interest of the borough. It demonstrates that the borough has concerns about the plant's operation. It makes a clear statement that the borough's expectation is that Covanta will fix its operational issues and upholds its promise to be a good corporate partner. The recommendation is also based on some additional information that has been researched over the past 2 weeks since the November 6th meeting. These items include the following. The entity charged with regulating the Covanta plant is the Department of Environmental Protection. From a legal standpoint, the DEP has determined that the Covanta is not in violation of their operating permit. In order to ensure that the DEP upholds its regulatory responsibilities over the course of the next 2 years, the borough has reached out to our state legislators, specifically State Representative Mary Jo Daley and Senator Hughes, who have both indicated that they will utilize their position within our state legislature to ensure that the DEP is fulfilling their responsibility. Covanta has budgeted approximately $10 million in capital expenditures in 2020. So based on that dollar amount alone, Covanta is clearly not going anywhere. Therefore, the 2-year renewal maintains the borough's interest in Covanta as a stakeholder. With an additional 40 clients, Covanta Plymouth will continue to operate with or without the borough's business. Because the facility is not located within the borough's borders, removing the borough as a stakeholder in the facility removes much of the leverage that the borough holds. The 2-year renewal allows the borough to retain a voice and ensure borough residents' interests are protected. During this 2-year limited time period, we have been told by Covanta management they will work collaboratively with the borough on the following: increased education and communication protocols on emissions from Covanta to our emergency services personnel, stress the importance of emissions data being provided to the community to demonstrate the plant is not negatively affecting health and safety, work with our emergency services personnel to determine what, if anything, the plant can provide in order to ensure the safety of our residents, businesses, and visitors, and will coordinate as needed in order for the borough to utilize our Code Red system for any notifications as it pertains to Covanta over the next 2 years. And understand that all of those items go away if we are not a client of Covanta that is still operating within our general vicinity. The borough did reach out to 3 alternative trash companies, JP Mascaro, Republic, and Waste Management. A brief summary of what they have to offer. JP Mascaro was at $107.50 per ton for 2020 alone. Their trash is disposed in a landfill in Birdsboro, PA, and the closest transfer station is in Bridgeport, PA. Republic was at $85 per ton. Trash is disposed in a landfill in Morgantown, PA, and the closest transfer station is on River Road. Waste Management would not provide costs. The borough was told to put out a formal bid for pricing. However, we reached out to neighboring municipalities, and their range appears to be around $60 to $70 per ton. However, the closest transfer station is in Grays Ferry, which is 16.2 miles away from Conshohocken, or an approximate 30-mile round trip. Their trash is disposed in a landfill in Lower Bucks County or Telford. So it's important to note that all companies would offer a cheaper rate for disposal directly to a landfill instead of use of a transfer station. However, they are all at a minimum a 2 to 3 hour round trip and potentially longer when you factor in the wait line at the station. If you would be interested in a cheaper rate for trash disposal itself, and we looked at the option of direct transfer to landfill for disposal, we estimated for you that we would need at a minimum 2 additional trucks at approximately $235,000 each, 2 additional union drivers at approximately $33.73 per hour, or around the $100,000 mark per person when you factor in benefits, and then there is gas, overtime, and other expenses. So even if you took advantage of the lower rate for landfill disposal directly, you would still be looking at a financial need of approximately $700,000 to $800,000 that you would need to budget with taxpayer dollars that are currently not accounted for. In other words, you would need to raise taxes even more than what you're currently proposing to do in 2020. So based on the estimates and feedback we've received, the borough will work closely with Republic moving forward. So in case of an emergency, the borough will always be able to provide trash disposal services, which is probably the most important service besides emergency management that we provide to our public. Just as a note, that in the current Covanta contract, if Covanta is not able to accept municipal waste, our municipality can deliver waste to an alternative disposal site and require Covanta to reimburse the municipality for any and all costs and fees incurred in delivering and transporting waste to the alternate disposal site. So for all these reasons, the bottom line for this evening is that a 2-year renewal allows the borough to continue for the short term to have a fiscally responsible trash and recycling disposal operation, while also maintaining its rights as a stakeholder in an entity that will continue to burn the same amount of trash per day with or without the borough's business. We feel as though this information is what you asked of administration to put together. We feel it's reflective of what the community has asked us to research over the last 2 weeks. So what is in front of you this evening for consideration is a motion to approve a 2-year addendum to the solid waste disposal agreement with Covanta Plymouth. And that's all I have.
Okay. So I would need a motion to approve a 2-year addendum to the solid waste disposal agreement with Covanta Plymouth.
President Leonard, I think for the purposes of this item that we'll open up to public comment prior to taking a motion if you're so inclined.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone
And just,
for public comment?
just a reminder for public comment, Ms. Rogers will be noting the 2-minute time limit, and if you can please come up and state your name and your address.
My name is Jessica Ram, and I'm at 138 Sutcliffe Lane. I have another handout for you guys. I'm surprising to hear you say in your talk that the DEP has determined that Covanta is in violation of their permit because this notice of violation issued by the DEP just last month says otherwise. So if you guys want, we can go through this. I've highlighted the important parts of this notice of violation issued by the DEP just last month again. So in the first point, they note that Covanta waited for more than 5 hours before reporting their malfunction to the DEP when the permit requires that they notify within 2 hours of the malfunction. So we've hammered this point home during other public comments. Again, why more than 5 hours when their permit says 2 and the community is at risk? The second point says that fugitive emissions were observed from the plant, and again, this is in violation of their air permit. The third point on the next page, the DEP confirmed that there was an odor of burning plastic smelled among the community. It was determined to be objectionable to the public. And it was determined that this odor was coming from the Covanta Plymouth facility. This, I think, is one of the most important parts of this violation because up until this point, Covanta has repeatedly denied that anything was coming from their facility. Time and time again, they said we're not emitting anything. Once they had this violation, they said, oh, that one time was from us. So to hold them that's not accountability to me. That's not a good neighbor. They're not telling the truth. They're trying to get away with whatever they can. Point number 4, emissions from each combustor were not controlled during this malfunction. While their facility was down, their control units were down also, which means that even more toxic pollutants were coming from that facility. Point number 5, the release of uncontrolled emissions. more of what we already know. So again, this is just one notice of violation that was issued just last month. And of course, this is among the 4 events that we know as a group of concerned citizens that happened. But this is only the one that we were able to pin them on and get the DEP on our side for. I also sent you an article. On the back, I have a list of the table that I referenced in an email to you earlier today. Covanta Plymouth is the #1 violator out of all 73 municipal waste incinerators in this country. There are 73 incinerators in this country, and Covanta here, our neighbor, has the worst record for violations in the past 3 years, I should say. So how many more violations should they gather before we say, we will not send you our money, we will not send you our trash? How many more violations do I need to print out and hand to you guys to say, this is not a good neighbor, this facility is not operating within their permit?
Okay, Jessica, I have a question for you.
Yes,
I noticed on your list here, it says administrative,
yes.
but yet on some of the other ones, it actually breaks down the chemicals.
So this is an example of the recent one. So it could be record taking, it could have to do with their monitors or reporting requirements for their permit.
But it doesn't talk anything about chemicals.
Well, this is just some of their recent violations. So if they're not reporting properly, we don't know what kind of chemicals. I mean, it doesn't really tell us much about the violations. But the number, as you can see, is staggering compared to every other facility. Number 2 on this list, by the way, was closed earlier this year. So the next highest number of violations is 11, and our plant has 3 times that amount. When I asked Covanta after the Plymouth meeting to install a metals monitor, because I want to see what emissions are coming from that facility, Mr. Sharp's colleagues replied, that's not standard. I think that speaks volumes as to where the facility stands. They're not going to do anything that's above standards to help protect us. They don't want us to get any more information than they have to report to us. I'm proposing for Plymouth Township to enact a clean air law that would require them to monitor some of these emissions that they're not currently monitoring. And if we were able to pass this law, I would expect it would actually end up closing the plant. So I urge you guys to get ahead of our efforts and say no now so that you can come up with a plan on your own time scale rather than waiting for our group to help try and close this facility.
Thank you, Ms. Ram. That's your time.
I also advise you to follow White Marsh's lead, and from their mouths, they
Ms.
said,
Ram, that is the time that's
we
allocated.
cannot keep conducting business as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Macoyd, 112 West 9th Avenue. You've heard from me a lot over the past few months with my email screeds and everything else. And first off, I want to thank Steph for the hard work I know that went into researching everything. At the same time, though, it's unfortunate that we're coming down to the last minute with this, especially with regard to the third option that wouldn't give an actual quote because they were requesting an RFP. I was one of the people affected by that June outage. I'm also a homeowner. I don't want my taxes to go up. We're in a tough spot here in this borough. But echoing what Jessica just said, did anybody look to the northwest Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday night? Anybody see the size of the plumes coming out of that place? It's a lot bigger than usual. A lot more steam was coming out of there. Some of the residents in Plymouth inquired about that and said, oh, Covanta is running a little bit higher. They're checking the operational capabilities of the plant. You know, okay, makes sense. If you took elementary school science, you know that hotter temperature, humidity, steam, cold atmosphere, it's going to be more steam. It's going to have greater appearance there. Come to find out, starting today through next Tuesday, Covanta is in the process of doing their annual stack certification. That allows them to renew their permit for the next year. So you think about how badly they've botched their operations over the course of the past year with the emissions, and we don't need to review all that. You're all aware of what happened in June, what happened in October. Yeah, it makes sense if you've had an old car or a fireplace. You burn hotter. You get on the turnpike, you get up to a higher speed before you go your emissions test. Or you clean out your flue to make sure there's no creosote buildup. They're doing that right now, so they're going to get a nice clean burn, and certainly, yeah, DEP, which is proven toothless in their enforcement, is going to say, oh yeah, okay, the third party you've hired says you're clean, keep on going. That should speak volumes. Bob, if you looked at it, did you see that steam yourself? See how big it was? I'm sure people complained to you about the nights. So you saw they were cleaning stuff out before their certification. So you think about it. You think about it long and hard. Again, I know we're in a tough spot. I don't want my taxes to go up. It's unfortunate that we're put here right now, that we're waiting to, and we're not alone. Other municipalities are in the same boat. White Marsh chose a different direction. I'm sure maybe if we looked at things a little bit sooner, we wouldn't be down here like this. I just ask you to consider everything that's been put forward so far and make the right decision.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Steve Geiger. I'm a resident of Plymouth Township, 513 Overhill Road. I do a lot of things in Conshohocken. My son goes to Conshohocken Boy Scouts. He was doing the Conchi cleanup, you know. I would just ask, my township let me down. Don't let your residents down. You know, you can't put a price on your kids getting polluted. You can't put a price on that, you know. Just make the right choice. Pay a little bit extra money, send it to a landfill. The pollution is going to hurt your children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Hawk, 132 East 6th Avenue. I guess I have a question. I heard a lot said about we have more leverage if we go with Covanta. They're going to still be, you know, doing trash to steam, even if we're not there. But I kept hearing that word leverage, and I don't know what you mean. If Covanta does things that are hurting our borough members, our borough neighbors, what is it that you as borough members or borough council members are going to do for the health and welfare of our community? I hear leverage, but I don't know what that means. I don't hear, does it have teeth? How are you going to actually do something to make Covanta be a good neighbor?
No.
We don't do back and forth right now.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment?
Okay.
Thank you. So we need a motion to approve a 2-year addendum to the solid waste disposal agreement with Covanta Plymouth.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
I think it's probably best if we do a roll call.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Councilmember Tatino. Councilmember Sokolowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Barton.
Yes.
Councilmember Stokely.
No.
Vice President Flanagan.
Yes.
President Leonard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
President Leonard, there is no other new business at this time.
Any public comment on anything else? Yes, please come up and state your name.
David Sharp, 1155 Conshohocken Road. I am with Covanta Plymouth. I just want to thank the council for their consideration of the matter. I understand it was a difficult circumstances, and I just want to affirm our commitment, as Ms. Checo indicated, to work with the community, do everything we can to make sure the plant operates properly, and we get this behind us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mayor Aronson?
On Saturday, the EAC and a team of volunteers planted 27 trees at Sutcliffe Park. I want to thank council for your support of this project, as well as Public Works, who put in a tremendous amount of time helping to set up and plan the event with Tim Snyder, one of our EAC members. I encourage everyone to check out the new trees before it gets too cold, but we had a really good time, so thank you all for your support on that. And then this is actually our last meeting of the month, so I wanted to remind everyone that the Christmas tree lighting is next Friday, November 29th at 5:45 p.m. There's going to be food, trivia, a reading of The Night Before Christmas, and prizes. I did speak with Santa this week, and he confirmed the date with Mrs. Claus, so he's very excited to join us. That's it from me.
Thank you. Mr. Stokely?
I got at the polls the other day, a resident just talked to me about stop sign 11th and Forest. That we have that all through town that people are going through stop signs. Okay, and I just got a question, and I really wish the chief was here.
Unfortunately,
He's sick.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the resident asked, what can they do about it, they said, go see your councilman. So I think that was a good answer.
Who gave that reply?
Supposedly, this is what I was told by the resident.
The police told him that?
The police told him, go see your councilman.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll tell you something else. It was funny when it first happened, but then after I thought about it, we got a student school teaching people how to drive with through three stop signs on Caldwell Lane. Now, that's pretty bad. A student driving school. So this is a real problem in this town. So we really have to start pulling people over and giving them, maybe we have to double the fines. Maybe we have to double the fines in the town and send a message. Because it's happening every hour.
Right.
And every stop sign.
Stop sign. And they don't go through one.
They go through
through
three.
three.
Right.
Right in a row.
It's a discussion we can have with
We have that.
Lieutenant Metz. Thank you. Ms. Barton? Chief Metz.
I just want to reiterate, Saturday was cold, but fun, and I learned even more about how to plant a tree than I did in my class. I think seeing is always the best. So I thank the mayor and all those that showed up to help us out.
Tina?
This really is to Mr. Sharp. You've sat here a few times and you've listened to our residents and their concerns. That's not going away. Covanta has lost the confidence of the residents of Conshohocken. We were asked, what is it that is what we're going to do, and what is it? The fact of the matter, it is more communication with our leadership team so that we can keep the residents informed, and then the education piece. This isn't going away. The pressure is going to continue to be put on Covanta. And you need to know that we support our residents from that perspective. But as a good partner, the communication lines have to be open. And you've got a lot of people who have no confidence in Covanta. Thank you.
Jane?
No, I'm good.
Karen? No one else? Meeting adjourned.